Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Brewers Minute. So today we're going to take some time with Hour of Devastation, getting closer and closer, to talk about Amonkhet one last time, and we're going to talk about 5 cards from Amonkhet that have potential to get a lot better with the release of Hour of Devastation. One of the unique things about Standard, and how Standard works, and how we get new sets, and those sets are so impactful, is there's basically 2 broad groups of cards in Standard. There are low potential cards and high potential cards. And this is not a judgment about how good or bad those cards are. You can be a great card and still be low in potential, because what I mean by that is cards that have the potential to get much better with future sets, and some cards that just kind of are what they are. For example, I consider Angel of Sanctions to be a low potential card. It's not that Angel of Sanctions is a bad card by any means, but it's hard to envision it doing much more when Hour of Devastation releases, or after rotation this fall, than it's doing right now. I mean, it could get a little better if there's some permanent that you really want to exile, but for the most part, it kind of is what it is. On the other hand, we have a small group of cards from Amonkhet that could go from not very good right now, or kind of fringe right now, to suddenly very, very good, where you can build an entire deck or archetype around them. They become format staples, and those are the cards we're going to be talking about today. So a quick reminder before we break down 5 sleepers, high potential sleepers from Amonkhet. If you enjoy Brewers Minute and the other series here on the channel, it would be amazing of you if you take a quick second, click that subscribe button down in the corner of your screen. It's a great way to support the channel and the site for free. So number 5 on our list, and this is a broad and not super exciting one, but I think is important to mention, and that is Graveyard Hate cards. So we lived in Standard without any Graveyard Hate for a long time. Then in Amonkhet, we got Watchers of the Dead and Scarab Feast, and so far these cards have kind of went unplayed in Standard, and that's because of what the format looks like. And it's kind of interesting because Amonkhet is very heavily influenced by the graveyard. You got Embalm, you got Aftermath, there's a lot going on with graveyards, but those mechanics haven't really caught on too much because the format has been dominated by Copycat, dominated by Aetherworks Marvel decks that aren't really using the graveyard in that way. However, there's a chance with Hour of Devastation, which one would assume is probably going to be very heavily graveyard focused as well, because that seems to be characteristic of the Egyptian theme of Amonkhet block, that these cards could suddenly be very important to the format if we get a tier graveyard deck that emerges with new Aftermath cards and Embalm cards or whatever other graveyard mechanics happen to be in Hour of Devastation. So definitely worth keeping an eye on those. Either one could end up showing up in main decks. Watcher of the Dead, Colorless Bear for 2 mana is not horrible, and Scarab's Feast you can always cycle it away, so keep these cards in mind as we start seeing the new graveyard mechanics roll out. So number 4 on our list, we have another group of cards, and that is the Cycling Matter cards. Probably the highlight here is New Perspectives, a card that we've seen is already right on the fringe of being good enough. It worked on Against the Odds, it was played at the Pro Tour, although not super successfully, but you can also throw in stuff like Drake's Haven, even Archfiend of Ifnir, any cycling payoff, because it seems very likely that we're going to get more cycling cards in Hour of Devastation, and it might be enough to push New Perspectives from very, very fringe to a tier archetype, or Drakehaven the same way. It could go from this fun budget Against the Odds deck we play to one of the better decks in the format if we get the right cycling cards to go along with it. So that's number 4 on the list, the cycling payoffs. Moving on to number 3 on our list, we have Neheb the Worthy, our Minotaur Lord. And Neheb the Worthy is a really powerful card. It has some really sweet abilities for a Lord. Not only does it potentially give all of our Minotaurs +2/+0, and it always gives them first strike, which makes them not only super hard to deal with, but super hard to block, but it also makes our opponent discard cards, also ourselves, which is kind of fine because it turns on the Neheb. The problem with Neheb, despite all this power, we just don't have a good Minotaur curve in Standard. Right now, there's only a handful of Minotaurs, I believe 9 Minotaurs in our Standard format, and they come at really awkward points on the curve. There's a single 2-drop, there's a massive pile of 3 drops and a massive pile of 4 drops. So we just don't have the right curve to make Minotaur Tribal be a thing. What we really need for Neheb to break out is a Minotaur 1-drop or 2 Minotaur 1-drops, along with maybe another decent 2-drop, and that's all we really need, because we have Blood Rage Brawler, which is huge. We have On-Crop Crasher, which is very aggressive and can be very strong, so we have some good foundational pieces for a Minotaur Tribal deck already, and that's not even considering Neheb itself, but we don't have the curve fillers. And I'm not talking about exciting cards. A 2-power 1-drop. It doesn't have to be insane. It doesn't have to be Goblin Guide. Another reasonably costed 2-drop with a decent amount of power and toughness. Those are the things we need, and there's a pretty good shot that we're going to get more Minotaurs. Hopefully Wizards is looking at it the same way and realizing that people want to play Minotaurs in Standard, and they need those things, those curve fillers, to be able to make the deck work. So for now, Neheb comes in at number 3 on our list of high potential Amonkhet sleepers. At number 2 on our list is kind of the same thing. Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons. And the thing with Hapatra, much like Neheb, is we just don't have enough -1/-1 counter support from one set. We have some good things, some high potential things. We have Channeler Initiate, which is a playable card. Baleful Amit, Plague Belcher, those things are pretty reasonable as well. I think with this one, what we really want to see is some good -1/-1 counter removal. I think that's what we're missing from Hapatra suddenly shooting up the ranks to being a really good card, because Hapatra herself is super strong. It does a lot of really good things. Being able to make snake tokens with Death Touch for free is just a very powerful ability. So I think that there's definitely potential for a -1/-1 counter deck to work, but we're just missing a couple of key pieces. We need like a 1-mana 3/3 that starts by putting counters on itself and then somehow removes those counters as it goes along and turns into a really big beater. Something along those lines would be sweet. Otherwise, a Grasp of Darkness that dealt with -1/-1 counters. Something along those lines would go a long way towards making Hapatra a tier 1 deck. So that's number 2 on our list, Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons. Number 1 on our list, and one of my favorite cards from the set, is Anointed Procession. So why is Anointed Procession the highest potential sleeper from Amonkhet? And there's a couple reasons. One is, out of all the cards we talked about today, Anointed Procession is a card that is close enough to being good already. We've seen Sam Black playing it. We've seen it show up at Pro Tours and at GPs, and it hasn't really caught on and become a thing. And of course, we've played it on Against the Odds and Budget Magic, and it's a very powerful effect, and we've seen it so close to being competitive with just Amonkhet to work with, and I think it's fair to expect more token themes in Hour of Devastation, maybe more Embalm cards, and we've seen Embalm cards already working with it, Sacred Cats, and some of the other Embalm synergies. So if we can get some more Embalm cards, or just good token makers in general, there's a chance that Anointed Procession goes from the fringe of being standard playable to being a real deck, and that would be so sweet to see Anointed Procession actually being a real deck in the standard format, because it's such a sweet card. People love token decks. It's so cool to double up your stuff, so I'm crossing my fingers and hoping, but I think there's a decent chance that with Hour of Devastation, Anointed Procession finally comes into its own as a tier archetype. So anyway, those are our 5 high potential sleepers from Amonkhet. The Graveyard Hate cards, the Cycling Payoffs, Neheb the Worthy with Minotaurs, Hapatra with -1/-1 counters, and Anointed Procession with tokens. So what do you think? What cards are you looking forward to getting better with new Hour of Devastation cards? What's close but not quite there and might get there with one more set? Make sure to let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.